All right. I'd like to say hello to everybody again. Welcome to back to You Are Not the Thinker. 12-step recovery. The name of this is called You Are Not the Thinker. And tonight's subject is going to be step 2. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Could restore us to sanity. And right now, I just want to the audience, I like to say, take time, a little time, and just look at step 2. Don't think about what you know, but just look at the step right now and just look at what you see. All you do is just look at what you see. Don't think about what somebody else told you, what you learned at a meeting. Just look at what you see in this step where it says, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And then we're going to take a little walk through it. Now, what I want you to keep in mind is the theme. And the theme is, you are not the thinker. You are not the thinker that an entity called addiction has control over your thinking, even while you're going through the step process. This is what I'm asking. So, you are not the thinker. Something else is thinking for you. And once the individual look at that approach, then they are on the next level to the freedom of thought. To the freedom of thought. And when we walk through this step, just a step, you're going to see exactly what I'm trying to get at. Now, mind you, when you see the we part, the we, and let me back up for a second. Understand that in recovery, recovery has its own language. It has its own language. Just like plumbers have their own language, just like doctors and lawyers and even garbage men, they'll have their own language. So that being said, is that in recovery, we have words that mean that because of the nature of addiction, the words that we use is intended to neutralize the addiction, is intended to neutralize the thinking. So that being said, so let's first, before we jump off into the step, do a recap of what addiction is. Addiction is obsessive thinking and compulsive behavior. And where does it lies? It lies in the thinking. It lies right between, some of us say in between our ears, or it lies in the brain. Lies in the mind. It plays mind games. And don't think just because I'm reading a step or reading some type of spiritual literature or religious literature that the addiction is not affecting my thinking. Well, addiction wouldn't be as powerful. It wouldn't be as powerful as it is if it didn't. So, addiction being obsessive thinking, followed by compulsive behavior. So let's look at step 2. Now the we in step 2, so let's say if I'm in a meeting, and we're reading this in a meeting, that's the collective. That's the collective part of step 2. But if I'm by myself, what is that we? What is the we now? Well, how does addiction affect the individual? On 4 levels: mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. The makeup of the human being, that is the we. So when we look at the we, this is what I'm talking about. And it says we came to believe. We came to believe. Now, a while back in the 80s, and that's about how long I've been around, AA had a step 2 literature book called Came to Believe. And it's been mimicked in a lot of other 12-step programs. For example, it says came to, then came to believe. Came to believe. So when we come to, what it suggests is that the individual or even the group, because addiction affects groups or collectives. So what it's suggesting is that there was some unconsciousness, that the group or the individual was unconscious. And how do we know that? It's when we look at step 1. Step 1 says, we admitted that we were what? We were what? Powerless over our addiction, that our lives had become what? Unmanageable. We were powerless over the addiction, which is in the mind. We came to believe that a power greater, we came to believe that, we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. So in step 2, what it's suggesting is that in step 1, I was unconscious. But what step 1 is also asking the individual to do, if you look at that step, it's saying, look at where you were. Why? It's because it says we admit it. We admit it. So you talking about a past experience that you looked at and you, in long story short, admitted and surrendered to. In step 2, what it's talking about when it says we came to, I'm coming from a dark spot, step 1, into consciousness. So it's like sleeping. When you wake up from sleep, and when most individuals wake up from sleep, they're coming from an unconscious place and they're becoming conscious. It's just like what? Waking up. I woke up. But here's the thing. Just because I woke up doesn't mean I'm aware. I could be groggy. My eyes ain't really open yet. My hearing ain't I'm not really hearing, I'm not really identifying distinct noises. I'm not really tasting or smelling, my senses haven't kicked in yet. And this is what, when we say we came to. We came to. And then it says believe. And what was the belief? Or coming from what? From step 2. And I come to believe that what? I can get clean. Excuse me. That I can get clean. Then it says this, and I think this is where a lot of people really kind of lose this step. Now understand, in step 2, we're coming to a consciousness. We're coming to be conscious. And the power greater than ourselves, it's what's bringing us into conscious. So let's say when I wake up, I'm waking up, and all my senses have not kicked in. None of them. Smelling, hearing, seeing, tasting, touching, nothing. What happens is I slowly awaken to my senses. And my smelling, my hearing, my tasting, I'm slowly coming from the conscious state to the awakened state. I'm awakened. And once I awaken, now I'm able to what? Make decisions. Or I will make decisions in a conscious state. And what are some of those decisions that I make when I wake up? For some, am I going to smoke a cigarette? For some, am I going to take a bath? For some, am I going to go eat? For some, am I going to use the bathroom? For some, so it's whatever it is that's going to what? Bring coherence. That's going to bring the individual or the group to a state of coherence. And another word of coherence is, another word for coherence is awaken. I will become awakened. And as I become awakened, I can what? Make decisions. So as I awaken to whatever it is, to what decision I'm going to make, that's the restoration or the power that's greater than myself, because what? I will be restored to sanity in the moment. Understand that addiction is in the moment and recovery is in the moment, but they both cannot maintain the same space. So, for example, if I choose to go back to sleep, I said, well, I'm not going to get up. Shit, I'm going right back to sleep. I'm going to go back unconscious. But if I choose awakening, then I start facilitating my awakening. I will do things to what? To become more, to come from the conscious state to the awakening state. And it's real simple. But a lot of times, because we hear a power greater than self, and I think this is the our self is what throws people off, because they'll take this step straight to God, my higher power. But there's a step for that, and it's called step 3. But if I don't get step 2, I'm going to have problems throughout the whole recovery process. And at some point, a disaster will be bound to happen. So let's move on. It says a power greater than ourselves. Now, what is the ourself? Well, the ourself is connected to the we. And the we is the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional makeup of the human being. Bam. Very simple. It says ourselves, a power greater than ourselves. But here's the kicker. It says could restore us to sanity and not would. So could is a condition. And what is the condition of the could? Well, let's back up to the power to, and it said, I'm sorry, it don't say the power. It says a power, not the power. And there's the difference between a power and the power, where the is pointing to a single power. There is a selection there. There's a little cherry picking going on. There's something that you can that the A says, all right, there's a bunch of little powers over here. There's some powers over here, and whatever you need to take, that's what you need. That's what's going to help you. And if I don't choose the right power, or if I'm not conscious enough to a point where I need to get some soap and water or get me some food or whatever it is, my restoration to sanity will be impeded or retarded. Talking about step 2. So in the moment, it's revealed to me, to myself, or to the ours, and it's not myself, to the makeup, the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional part, and it's not a myself, because my only what? Insinuates one. Addiction doesn't affect the human being in one area. It affects all 4. Look at the step and just read it for yourself and repeat it. It says we, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, came to came to what? We came to belief. Based on what? Based on step 2. Telling me about step 1. It's telling me about my obsessive and compulsive, my obsessive thinking and my compulsive behavior. That a power, whatever that power is in the moment, whatever that power is in that moment. And I'm going to slap another word in there. In the now. We'll call it right now. And we can call it right now. Right now. Because what I'm trying to do, in effect, in going over this step 2, is a restoration to sanity in the now, so that one can understand, or even a group of people understand, that there will be no recovery without step 2. None. And the basic text tell you that. Says it in the blue book, Narcotics Anonymous. It says, if you don't get this step, you ain't gonna get no recovery. That's not to say you won't stay clean. All you gotta do is say no. That's not to say you won't drink. All you gotta do is say no. You don't even have to think why. It could be based on your own experience. Sex, food, gambling, power. Step 2 is designed to check the ego. Because the ego is the thing, or is that entity that keeps the individual insane. The feeding of the ego. The myself, or the self. And this step right here is designed to neutralize the ego and the self in the moment, in the here and now. Remember, in the moment, recovery and addiction cannot stand in the same spot. Either you're going to have recovery or you're going to have addiction. And that's why it says you are not the thinker. Not the thinker. The addiction is the thinker. And since the addiction, the obsession, then the compulsion lies between the ears, and that's what most, even the experts say, the psychiatrists and the counselors and all that, then you're not really thinking. Especially if you think that the God is the power greater than self, when it specifically says a power. So there's a choice in consciousness. And the restoration to sanity that happens in the moment is when I come from the conscious state, is when I come from unconscious to conscious to awareness to what? To enlightenment. Oh, because understand, this same step, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, is going to be the same step that you're going to lay beside step 11. It's going to be the same step that you set beside step 6 and 7. Not step 3. So wrapping this up, and I meant for this to be a short one because it don't take a lot of reading and quoting. You know, the bottom line is this. In the blue book, it says what? It says addiction is a power greater than ourselves. That's in step 2 in the blue book. Also step 2 in the big book. And also common sense, if you got it. So anyway, wrapping this segment of you are not the thinker, and you're not. To become the thinker, you must rise above consciousness. You must rise above awareness to be able to look at the way you think. That's the purpose of step 2. It's not there to give you some type of a God or something like that. That's step 3, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow. So wrapping this thing up, sit back, look at step 2, and read it about 3 times. I'm not saying go pick up
it works how and why or the basic text and, just read the whole damn thing. But I'm saying just read step 2 just like it is, and it's going to tell you. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could, and could is conditional, and it's based on what my enlightenment or my awareness, enlightenment is there, but before you have enlightenment, you must have awareness. You must come, the stages is unconscious, conscious, awareness, enlightenment, and then surrender. Yes, sir. So that's my take on it. Hit the button. I think it says subscribe on there. And tomorrow, Saturday night, 5/7/22, I'll be talking about step 3. We're going to do the God thing. And then we're going to see the contrast between a power greater than self and the God of my understanding. And then we're going to talk about the God of my understanding. But understand, without step 2, there will be no enlightenment. A person will be unconscious. There will be no consciousness. And also the group. Because what? Addiction affects groups. And how does addiction affect groups? Very, very easily. Look at a riot. All you got to do is look at some type of a riot, and you'll see addiction. So anyway, I'm going to hit my favorite song right there. And we're going to be doing step 3 tomorrow. And remember, you are not the thinker. You're not the thinker. Understand that.